Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Valeria and this is the Off-Road Range. In the previous video, I talked about how much it would cost me to build a fence and the technology of its installation. If you haven't seen this video yet, I will leave the link in the video description. It is very useful in the terms of theoretical technology. But before starting this video, I would like to say a couple of words about myself. I have a land of 10,000 square meters and I'm going to build a big house, a bathhouse, a lake with fish, put an apiary and grow an orchid on. But for now, all I have is a small house with no floor, water and furniture, a rusty sea container and an old Jeep that is almost fallen apart. Oh, I also have poisonous trees, thousands of them, and I need to cut down all of them. I had thousands of fruit trees as well, but 2,500 square meters have been already cut down, and I put a house in place of the fruit forest. On my channel, I talk about all the stages of my life at the off-road range. I learned to make many things from scratch, almost all things, and every quarter I show my income and expenses. And in the theoretical playlist, I talk about how to make life more quality and conscious, and how to become healthier, happier, and more purposeful person. So let's get to the topic of this video. This year I was planning to put up a fence. It would cost me over $200,000 to fence around 700 meters of border, even considering that my fence is a simple polymer coating fence mesh. This huge figure makes up from several factors: $45,000 for materials, $25,000 for tools. But what other numbers makes up this budget and why I will buy all the tools for myself, please check in the previous video. As I promised, today I would like to talk about a complete fence installation technology. What makes it special? My plot is located on sedimentary rocks and on stony ground, and it has a rather sharp height difference. So I will have to raise the level of a whole plot by backfilling it with a huge amount of earth. This is a separate and very expensive and difficult procedure. But today I would like to talk about next topics. First, about backfilling along the boundary of the plot. Second, about laying drainage along the boundary. And thirdly, about leaving hedge. The fence is only the visible part of the system. If the plot is located in a safe residential area that was specifically built for country living with families, then life becomes much more easier. First of all, more often than not, a ready-made plot is already leveled and prepared for quiet family living. It will be quite easy to put a fence, plant a beautiful lawn, and make drainage only from the roof of the house in a separate pipe. Although, of course, this doesn't always happen, and sometimes it is necessary to engage in landscape design. Secondly, in a safe area with well-managed neighbors and low level of crime, it is possible to install low fence that will serve only as a marker of a territory and will not carry protective functions, as in wealthy and safe areas of the United States, Britain and Europe. But it may turn out that you have other goals and ready areas don't suit you, for example, because they have many restrictions on size, on activities, on the height of fence, on the electricity consumption, and so on. In this case, you will focus on those factors that are more important to you than the flatness of terrain. Often, a site from scratch requires a separate approach. You may encounter various difficult problems, and quite often a separate expensive professional work may be required. Work of not a landscape designer, but specifically a construction geoengineer. The tasks of a geoengineer is to study the relief, water and soil, to take into account their impact on construction and operation of objects, and, if necessary, to create more favorable conditions for comfortable living and economic activity. And only after that, after all the complex earthworks are finished, there is the designer's task to create a static and comfortable space, so that your eyes is always happy with your trees and plants, and you rest your body and soul. Often the specialists work together. But, for example, if your plot is located below the main ground level, below the territories of your neighbors, then your plot will be constantly flooded in springs and autumns, since rainwater will flow there. And in this case, you will think not about beautiful pergola in flowering bushes and not about alpine slides, but about more serious problems. In addition, waste will also run off to a plot, including in groundwater. High humidity means not only dampness, but also cold during winter and autumn months. Imagine that in warm evenings your neighbors have plus 20 degrees Celsius and warm breeze, and you have plus 10 and cold and damp. In addition, dangerous gases also accumulated in low-lying areas. However, finding a plot on the above average level will also bring serious problems. During the process of finding a plot 2 years ago in 2022 in mountains, I have seen beautiful plots with incredibly mountain views, but with one major drawback. Clouds were passing through these plots. While this sounds so beautiful and inspiring, when building and living there, you will realize that there is no romance in it at all. Cold and wet clouds are constantly passing through the plot, depending on the wind and rain season. They constantly carry moisture into the house, and comfortable, warm, dry living in the house is impossible, as well as keeping structures dry and unrotted. This means that either a person will live in worse and more dangerous conditions than he would like to, or he will have to spend a lot of time and money in order to change the situation, and it is desirable to know about it in advance. That is why I told in the video number 12 that the cost of the houses in mountains in the same place can differ a dozen times. On the sunny side, the cost can be up to millions of dollars because of the sun, warmth and great views. And in shaded areas, even the cheapest plots can stand empty. Because of the shade in mountains, there will never be sun due to the relief. So don't fall for cheap lots because of imaginary benefits. What about my plot? I chose the land to create my own territory with a workshop, garage, fruit orchard, pond and apiary. So ready plots near the city were not suitable for me. I bought unimproved land to create my dream spot you can learn about in the video number 1. My land is situated on rocky terrain, on sedimentary rocks, and it is in lowland because of the relief. So in springs and autumn there is heavy precipitation that flows down from the mountains and from territory located higher. Also there are strong flows of meltwater, flood rise of groundwater and underflooding of natural faults of the terrain. In winter, the thickness of the snow can reach 1.5 meters, that is up to the neck, and in the spring it all melts. As a result, for several months a year, I have huge puddles, more than a meter depth, I can swim in. Just kidding, no swim. With all this in mind, I have issues that are not relevant to many people. These are the level of the plot in relation to the nearest high points, adjoining land and roads, the topography of the plot, water table, accumulation of precipitation on the plot and its drainage. Despite all these complicities, I chose a site of such shape and topography that I would remove as little soil as possible and not encounter rocks when creating a pond or building other structures. So at the moment of purchasing the site, I was already aware of what I will be working with, since I already knew about many of these factors. Thus, for me, the fence is not just installing posts and tensioning the fence webbing, but engineering research on the layers of earth and water table, work to build up and level the ground level with a laser level along the site boundary, drawing up a drainage plan and all the calculations, pipe diameter, pipe length, depth of location, distance to fence posts, and so on. In fact, drainage is an extremely important aspect that greatly affects both your comfort and the possibility of landscaping the site. Water can flood plants and everything will rot. A swampy, muddy soil will develop without oxygenation and moss will actively develop on the surface. Or vice versa, water can escape from the soil and it will become sparse and unsuitable for growing crops. In addition to all this, the situation can worsen by plants that actively take over the territory, displace cultivated plants, and worsen the quality of the soil. That said, with sufficient soil research and geoengineering, it is possible to determine in advance what and where you can grow and how it is possible to redistribute the moisture in the soil. Sometimes it can be very inexpensive, especially if you do everything with your own hands and use sewer pipes, crushed stone as drainage, waterproofing films, and, of course, international standards. Removal of the topsoil, fertile soil. Quality soil is very expensive, so I will carefully remove it and put it in a certain place. Earthwork as preparation for drainage of spring meltwater and seasonal heavy rains. This is digging and forming trenches, tamping the earth, creating drainage from crushed stone and gravel. It is the purchase of all materials: pipes, fittings, clamps, manholes, and so on. This is laying of pipes under a certain slope at a certain depth, connecting pipes with leaves, digging and construction of extraction wells, and so on. Earthworks to raise and level the general level of the site to the final level. This is the creation of formwork along the site boundary using rebar and wooden shields to make it possible to raise the level without crumbling of the ground. This is the adjacent of the level by laser. With all this, I must not damage the cable I laid in the winter when digging a trench to connect the electricity to the house. In addition, all work involving large machinery must be coordinated with all power supply providers. I must not damage power grid, otherwise I will have to pay a huge fine. Also, in parallel with that, or before that, there is work with material for the fence. There are works with the material for the fence in the container and in the open air. And once the materials for the fence are ready, the installation work begins. I told about all this in the previous video, and I will not repeat it here. So, voila, the fence is ready. I understand that it is difficult for you to understand it by ear, but later I will explain everything step by step and show it on the construction site. And this video will become a kind of introduction and plan for action. However, as I said, I don't have means for building a fence. Nevertheless, it is important to carry out a maximum of those works that do not require finances. In my case, this is the design work and the calculation of all costs. To determine the horizontal zero level, even before the construction of the house, I observed the amount of rainfall during the year and marked off the level the house should stand on. That is why my house is on piles at a height of 1 meter. Also, in the future, I will make backfill to raise the level. To calculate the amount of land needed to raise the level, I divided my 10,000 square meters of land into small areas based on elevation differences. Back in the winter, I marked off levels on piles and on trees, and then measured the elevation differences at different spots of the land. Then I multiplied the area by the elevation, by the height, and got various numbers. Clouds appeared really quickly, and it was already evening, so I decided to move inside. Let's continue. To do the engineering works on the layers of soil and water table, and for designing drainage system, I applied to a specialist who has been designing all types of difficult terrain for more than 20 years all over the world. So a specialist with an experience of 20 years took into account the site location, soil composition and layers, groundwater levels at different times of the year, seismic activity, seasonal rainfall, the chemical aggressiveness of the soil and water and their damaging effects on metal, and many other factors. He has helped to determine the installation technology, the dimensions and depths of drainage pipes and storm pipes, the placement of inspection wells, as well as the method and depth of installing fence posts. In addition, I did geologic soil surveys back in the land purchase phase. Currently, I'm in the process of finishing the design of the drainage system in 3D, according to the recommendations of the specialist. Under normal circumstances, his work would cost me at least $50,000. But I'm doing the design for his future construction projects in the Netherlands. As you can see, barter system alive and works well. Communication and interchanges happen without intermediaries, and we can agree without government regulations and ban transactions, even without money. In monetary terms, no one of us made a profit, but both of us got what we needed by exchanging our services. Of course, this model is built only on trust, but it is possible to implement such a system using other methods of protection of market participants. For example, smart contracts, cryptographic algorithms, anonymous cryptocurrency, and other methods. And it will happen without dozens of intermediaries that charge a lot of commissions and taxes, and without total control over participants. As I said, I will install a polymer-coated mesh. But how can a transparent fence serve as a reliable defense and hide the territory and my property from the eyes of strangers? The answer is very simple. In addition to the metal fence, I want to plant a living hedge. A dense row of plantings will not allow a stranger to see what is happening on my site and estimate the cost of works, equipment and house. People often like to count other people's money and judge other people. Secondly, the greenery will not allow so easy access to my territory, especially if they are thorny. And thirdly, it's beautiful and ecologically friendly. If you are interested in the option of hedge, then there are a lot of options of small trees and shrubs that will suit you. The main thing is to remember that a hedge constantly requires maintenance, and this could be an extra work for you. What is the cost of these necessary and important activities today, in August 2024? I do not include engineering research and design work in the final price, since this work has been already done. Given the constant rise in prices due to recession and wars all around the world, I think that by spring 2025, the price will rise by at least 50%. And if the economy collapses, it could be all of 200%. So I will calculate numbers for today, and I will compare these figures next year. The ideal option for all full-fledged work, taking into account a huge amount of earthwork and further construction of a garage, a workshop, a bathhouse, a pond, is a purchase of a mini loader. With special buckets, trucks, forks, moldboards and other details, one unit of such equipment will replace a tractor, a loader, an excavator, dump truck and snowplow. This machine will remove the fertile layer of soil, dig trenches, excavate pits of a certain depth, raise the ground to a certain height, move the ground, and if there are compatible drilling rigs, this machine will even drill holes for further installation of fence posts. As of today, one machine with all equipment that I need will cost around $60,000. It is not a Caterpillar or JSB, whose price will be at least $150,000. It is more budget and local version. However, it is not much inferior in quality, and in the same hands and with proper maintenance, it may last even longer. This purchase may seem a very expensive option, but first, the rental of equipment and the work of workers for laying of drainage system and raising the land along the border will cost around $900,000. Secondly, no one will come here to work on heavy construction machines even for such money and with the provisioning of housing. Such machinery requires maintenance every week, and I need to take into account road, terrain, distance, and special trucks for delivering these machines. And thirdly, you have to be a very rich, lazy, and stupid person to spend almost $1 million just for earthwork to install the fence. Especially since in the previous video I already laid down around $60,000 for earthworks for installing just a fence, without taking into account drainage systems and leveling the ground level. So buying my own equipment for $60,000 will save me from rent for many years and will free me from dependence on other people's equipment. Having a mini loader eliminates 60% of the cost of rental heavy equipment and 20% of its logistics. Therefore, buying one mini loader is not a luxury and show-offs, but just a minimum necessity. Friends, if you would like to support my growth and development, then I would appreciate your like, subscription and comment. Your activity promotes my channel greatly, and I don't use advertising. I would like my channel to be found organically by people with similar views and values to mine, to create a strong community with these people, and to find people that can support each other and strive for worthy goals. Moreover, advertising prices are simply unaffordable for me. And if you would like to support me financially, then in the video description you can find links to my Patreon, Buy Me a Coffee and several crypto wallets. By the way, cryptocurrency is the best option because commissions eat up a huge part of your donations, and it's a sad story. What other costs will I have? Materials, tools and supplies, fuel, hiring of labor, consulting and design geoengineer throughout the works, purchase and planting of living hedges. What kind of materials do I need? Basically, everything that is related to drainage. A huge amount of pipes or increased strengths to be under constant pressure of the ground from all sides. Drainage trays, drainage wells, as well as various couplings, fittings, seals, collars, and so on. There are special systems that are designed for different loads. According to preliminary calculations for laying the drainage system, I need around 2,000 meters of sewer pipes with a diameter of 110 millimeters and around 800 meters of drainage pipes with a diameter of 200 millimeters. These are international standards. The cost of pipes for today will be $25,000. And additional do-it-in parts will be like 30% of the cost of pipes. That is $8,000. In total, $33,000. Tools and consumables. My best friend will become a shovel. With such amount of excavation work, I can change dozens of them. A mini loader and backhoe are still pretty large and clumsy, and they cannot handle this detailed neat work. In addition, they are heavy. From one side, it can be an advantage. For example, they can be used to damp soil. On the other side, they can easily sit in soft soil or sand, hit fence posts, break pipes, or even worse, tear up power grids. Given that most tools and supplies are already included in the cost of the fence, it will cost an additional $15,000 for excavation work. Fuel. This item will take another $40,000. Why so much? Because it's a huge amount of work for a mini loader, as well as cost for logistics and delivery of people and materials by trailer. Hiring labor. In the previous video, I was talking about hiring preferably 4 people, and it would cost around $40,000. I consider that hiring 2 more workers and 1 mini loader driver to replace me will cost another $40,000. Consulting and design geoengineers throughout the work. As I said, at the moment we are working on mutual service principles. But if things change, then ongoing quality control may cost up to $500,000. I will include this figure very conditionally in the final price, since I hope that it would be a long-term cooperation. Buying and planting a hedge. The hedge will cost me $15,000. That is 3,000 evergreen trees at $5 each. This price could be lower if I buy very small trees, but in this case, 2 issues come into play. The first one is rooting. For good rooting, the grower periodically replant the tree. The older the plant is, the more transplants. The more transplants, the stronger roots, which means that there is a high percentage of trees that will take roots. The second issue is stealing. Since I will plant trees not only inside the area but also outside, small trees are much easier to dig up and carry away than mature trees. Just imagine how a thief's eyes might light up at the thought of having 1,500 valuable trees. That is at least $7,000. So, what are my total costs for earthwork for installing a fence? I consider the best case scenario where I buy a mini loader rather than paying $1 million for rental equipment. The total would be $206,000. $60,000 will cost a mini loader with all necessary equipment and $3,000 for its maintenance. $33,000 will cost materials. $15,000 will cost tools. $40,000 will cost fuel, and another $40,000 will cost the work of people. And $15,000 will cost a hedge. Also here I don't include the price for consultations and ongoing control of work. But if they are taken into account, then the price of the project will rise up to $700,000. And in this case, I will not put the fence neither the next year nor in a year. And also there is $200,000 for the fence installation itself. Totally, the price for the project cost more than $400,000. The viewers may wonder why I cannot just put up a fence, that is, net and posts, and do all other work for raising the ground level and drainage later. Firstly, now I'm talking about raising the ground only along the border of the site. That is, the fence will stand immediately at the right level, and in future I don't have to redo anything, since all the cost and time can be easily multiplied by 5. Secondly, if I raise the ground level at the border and put only a fence, then in order to install drainage system, I will have to remove all the soil, to install drainage system, and to backfill everything again. In this case, all cost and money can be multiplied by 10. And I really don't want that. And in general, without drainage system, it is unclear how the water will be redistributed on my site, since in fact I will create a pit. Thus, You understand that the fence is only the external, visible part of work, and behind it there may be expenses several times more than the cost of the fence itself. And it may take much more time than just drilling a hole, installing a post, and filling it with sand. Of course, I can do none of this. Yes, water will stay on the site, but there is no need to go there. Yes, water will flood every year, but there is no need to spend so much time, energy, and money, and so on. But in this case, you can just live your best life and not worry about anything. You may want a better life, but do nothing for it. Just lay on the sofa on social networks and complain that other people live better than you. But in this case, you don't have to choose your priorities, values, independence, and self-realization. You don't have to invest your life in something that is important for you. You don't have to work 7 days a week in order to achieve what you want, and you know how hard it is. You can just live your only life without straining neither physically nor mentally, and be content with what someone has chosen for you. This way of existence also takes place in the world, but in my opinion, is just a waste of time and life. Therefore, I wish you to think more often what you want and what doesn't suit you, and to spend your resources wisely to achieve the life that you want. In my turn, I hope that my video was useful for you, and I will be grateful for your support. It was Valeria, the Off-Road Range. I wish you all the best and see you soon.